All right, so you're gearing up for the Certified Financial Research Administrator exam. And yeah, let's be honest, it's a beast. But what if I told you the secret to taming it isn't just about memorizing a bunch of answers? Today, we're going to decode the mindset, the actual principles you need to really master this thing. So let's get right to it.
So I want to start with this question because it really gets to the heart of what we're talking about today. What is the difference between knowing the rules and actually mastering the game? You know, anyone can read a rule book, but mastering the game? That's all about strategy. It's about understanding the why behind every single move. And that's exactly our goal here, to shift you from just hunting for the right answer to really, truly understanding the principles.
Okay, so if we're going to master the game, first we've got to know the board, right? The exam is broken down into these 4 key areas. But just look at that massive slice of the pie right there. Project costs. We're talking 35%. That is the heavyweight champion of this entire test. So, you know what? To win, we've got to conquer that one first. Let's start right there.
All right, no easing into it. Let's jump straight into the deep end with grant math. This is the absolute bedrock of that huge project cost section we just saw. Getting these calculations right, well, it's pretty much non-negotiable.
Okay, here's a classic problem you're almost guaranteed to see in some shape or form. You've got a principal investigator, or PI, with an institutional base salary of $180,000. They're committing 25% of their effort, and there's a 28% fringe rate. The question is simple: what's the total charge to the grant? Let's break this down together.
So the logic here is pretty straightforward. First, we've got to figure out the slice of salary that's actually being charged to the grant. So 25% of $180,000, that's $45,000. Easy enough. Next, you calculate the fringe on that amount, which comes out to $12,600. Add them together, and voila, you get a total charge of $57,600. Seems simple, right? Well,
And here's the kicker. In the original source material this question came from, our perfectly calculated, totally correct answer, it wasn't even one of the choices. And this is so important because it tells you something absolutely crucial about how you should be preparing for this exam.
This quote from the source document just nails it. A correct answer without understanding the underlying regulation or calculation is merely luck. See, your goal shouldn't be to guess which of the multiple choice answers is closest. Your goal is to master the method so completely that you can look at a flawed set of options and know with 100% confidence that they're the ones that are wrong. It's all about trusting your process, not some potentially flawed answer key.
okay, let's try another one. This is a common problem, but it's a bit more complex. This time, we have the total award amount, and we have to work backwards to find the direct costs. Oh, and we also have to deal with F&A rates and some exclusions. To solve this kind of puzzle, you need a very specific tool in your toolkit. And here it is. This formula is your key. I mean it. Commit this one to memory. You take the total award, you subtract out any exclusions, then you divide that number by 1 plus the F&A rate, and then, and this is the part everybody forgets, you have to add those exclusions right back in at the end. Let's plug in the numbers and see how it works.
So, let's plug in the numbers from our problem. We take the $300,000 total award, subtract the $40,000 in equipment, that gives us $260,000. Now we divide that by 1.40, that's the 1 plus our 40% F&A rate, that gets us to about $185,714, and for the final step, we add that excluded $40,000 back in, giving us our final total direct cost of roughly $225,714.
And would you believe it? In the source material, the correct answer provided was once again wrong. This really just hammers the point home, doesn't it? You have to learn the formulas. You have to trust your own process. That's the stuff that will make you absolutely unshakable when you're sitting in that exam.
Okay, so we've established that you've got to master the math. But, those numbers don't just exist in a vacuum. Now we need to navigate the rules, the language, and the framework that governs all those numbers. This is where we go from just knowing the jargon to having confident judgment. Here is a perfect example of where the jargon can really trip you up. The exam is absolutely going to test you on what an indirect cost base is. I want you to think of it like a bucket. In that bucket, you'll find things like modified total direct costs, or MTDC. What you will not find in that bucket is institutional base salary, or IBS. Why not? Because IBS isn't the bucket itself, it's one of the things you put into a different bucket, the direct cost bucket. And since we're talking about it, let's get a crystal clear definition of IBS. According to the CFRA's own body of knowledge, it's the fundamental rate you must use when you charge an employee's salary to a federal project. It is the required official starting point for all those salary calculations we were just practicing.
So, why all this obsession? Why do we have to be so precise with all these rules and definitions? You know, this quote from the Code of Ethics, it gets right to the absolute heart of it. It's such a powerful reminder that this isn't just about crunching numbers. We are stewards of the public good. Following these rules isn't just about avoiding an audit, it's about upholding a fundamental public trust.
Okay, so we've looked at single calculations, we've looked at specific rules, but none of this happens in isolation. So now let's zoom out a bit and see how all these pieces fit together into a much larger narrative, the financial story of a grant, from the very beginning to the very end.
This timeline really helps connect all the dots. I want you to think of it like a journey. It all starts with budgeting. Maybe you're using something like a modular budget. From there, you move into the active reporting phase. You're drawing down funds, you're filing those federal financial reports. Then, once the work is done, you hit the closeout phase, where you have to account for things like carryover funds. But the story doesn't even end there. It continues right into record retention, where you are legally required to keep all those records for at least 3 years. See, it's a whole cycle.
And that brings us to our final and honestly most important section. The exam doesn't just test what you know, it tests how you apply that knowledge, especially in tricky situations. It's all about learning to think critically, to think like a real CFRA.
Now this question is an absolute masterpiece of misdirection. You see the word equipment, and your brain immediately starts screaming, MTDC exclusion, MTDC exclusion. You see an F&A rate, and you get tempted to start running calculations. But wait a minute, stop. Read the question again very carefully. The most important word in this entire sentence is rebudgets.
And this slide right here shows the critical difference you have to get. When you're creating a proposal, you're building the budget from the ground up. You add F&A on top of your direct costs to get the grand total. But in a rebudget, the total award is already a fixed pot of money. It's already been approved. You're just moving funds from one pocket inside that pot to another pocket.
So after all that potential confusion and misdirection, how much money is actually available for the equipment? It's the full $150,000. It's designed to be a trick question, and the trick is, there's no trick. The full amount is available because in a rebudget, you are just reallocating direct costs. Think of the total award amount like a locked safe. The F&A was calculated before the money got locked inside. All a rebudget does is move cash from one little box to another inside that safe. You aren't adding anything to the safe or taking anything out, so the F&A is totally unaffected. Understanding this difference is thinking like a CFRA.
So that's really the question I want to leave you with. Are you ready to move past just memorizing answers and start actually mastering the principles? Because preparing for the CFRA isn't about cramming a bunch of facts. It's about building a solid framework of understanding. If you can master the principles and trust your process, you won't just pass the exam, you'll have truly earned that certification.